it should be here.
Right, we'll just run on then. It's completely anonymous. Your connectivity, we value your opinions. Your answers help us create a better Commit to 5G group because we'll be able to talk about things you want to talk about. Are you in a time warp? Are you already in 2030? Answer these questions and participate in discussion. Right, here we go. What type of organisation do you represent? That's an easy one, isn't it? Everyone got that one? Moving on.
Just hang on a minute.
Oh,
Sorry.
right, Steve.
Just bear with. Yeah.
Contractor, great. Great.
I'm waiting for my connectivity.
Yes.
Hands up, contractors. Hands up. Good, lovely to see you all. Onwards. How many employees are in your organisation? Wow, big companies here. Fantastic. Good to see you. How would you describe IT connectivity to site, cabin, offices on typical construction project sites in the... That's typo. Typical construction project site in the UK. Work some of the time. Yeah. Okay. IT connectivity across a typical construction project site in the UK. All the time, most of the time, some of the time. Work some of the time. And there's no unusables there.
So it's not completely a non-starter.
Well done. Do you believe there is a link between good site IT connectivity and innovation on a construction project?
Bit of a leading question.
Right. Business cases. Business case for 5G. I think that's interesting. Improvements in health and safety, improvements in meeting sustainability, early finish, cost reduction, quality increase. Reduction in costs.
Typical contractor response.
Yes.
And surely it's a reduction in costs.
Very interesting. Welcome to the panel, everybody. So here we are, we're talking about 5G. Does anyone have a question for the panel? No? Okay, I'm going to start it off with comments from Andrew Lambert of EMS, who's also a member of this 5G group. He said private networks offer several advantages over traditional Wi-Fi systems, particularly in terms of coverage, cost efficiency, security, and quality of service. A single 5G radio access point can cover a much larger area compared to Wi-Fi, which requires multiple access points to achieve the same coverage, thus simplifying network architecture and reducing installation complexities. This extended coverage capacity not only reduces the number of physical installations needed, thereby lowering the cost related to power consumption and labour, especially in environments where working at height is involved, but also enhances the overall efficiency of the network deployment. Furthermore, private 5G networks provide superior security features tailored for enterprise use, ensuring robust protection against unauthorized access and data breaches. They also offer enhanced quality of service capabilities, allowing for prioritization of critical communications and supporting a wider range of applications with varying latency and bandwidth requirements, which is crucial for industrial applications and IoT connectivity. Discuss. Steve, would you like to go first?
God blimey.
What was the question?
Yeah. Can you paraphrase?
Why don't we talk about the business case? Why don't you talk about the business case? Getting the 5G business case through? Because I think that's interesting.
Business case. So I think, and probably I want to bring Ben into the conversation here, and probably Chris as well, because they're working very closely with solution providers into construction. And one of the biggest challenges that we see is around the business case for enabling our sites with connectivity, and is, do you even have the conversation when you're talking about the solutions, whether or not does connectivity even come up in the conversation when you're talking to Hexagon, when you're talking to Open Space or Build Dots or whoever it is that you're talking to? Do you have the conversation around whether or not this is going to work on the site, or is it all about their solution that they're showing you works really well in an office environment?
Yeah, I think that's, you know, with all the different vendors that we speak to, it's almost deemed as a given that you'll have good connectivity, and we know that's not the case. You know, we've just been doing some laser scanning trials, and we're now venturing into major projects, and you know, projects that are in the hundreds of millions of pounds, and you know, scanning a building like that, trying to transfer all that data, your current level of infrastructure doesn't quite cut it. There's the optimistic me, and then there's the cynical me. I'll go with the cynical first. I think senior leadership will probably start paying attention when the inertia becomes too much, and it becomes glaringly obvious that connectivity needs to improve. I think, you know, you'll get a lot of pockets where, well, my Teams works, my emails work, that's enough. But in this sort of next era that we're moving into, where, you know, files are getting much larger, much denser, and data rich, and, you know, all the above, you would like to think that there's a more proactive side of the industry, which is obviously what this forum's about, of seeing this sort of tsunami wave coming of sort of cutting edge technology and emerging technology that requires much more bandwidth, and actually enabling the projects to have that connectivity. And that's really where I see 5G sitting. I see it more as a catalyst of innovation rather than you know, one of the keys to to productivity. I would say it's more of an enabler, a catalyst in that respect, and that's why that hidden nature of it, it's not something you can see, touch and feel if you're a senior leader, where you have to really clearly articulate the benefit. But I mean, I just had it coming down on the train there, trying to connect into a meeting and all the tunnels that came with it. You know, if you relate on that level with senior leadership, that's something that they get and they understand. You know, how many times you've tried to connect into a meeting and you've got a patchy signal or whatever it may be. Well, imagine that times 1,000 when you're trying to deal with, you know, laser scan data and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really interesting. So maybe we see 5G as an enabler of the technology that we need to achieve the construction site of tomorrow. So if you could maybe take a bet on what is going to be that crucial piece of technology that enables some kind of really show-stopping development rather than incremental, you know, bandwidth and latency, it's incremental. So it's a hard conversation to have sometimes, saying this 5G investment is going to enable lower bandwidth, higher latency, fantastic. What is that piece of technology in your eyes that's going to get it through? I don't know, I'll start with you, Chris.
I don't know. I don't know the solution. I know what we need, and I know what our requirements are. And it is, we need to have access data connectivity at every point of that construction site. We need it when the envelope's closed. We need it at enabling works. What that solution is, I don't know. That's actually not my domain. My domain's more of in the operation side of things. So I'm not really the right person really to answer. Steve, you might be able to.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? I think it's probably all of the above is what we've seen. So the graphic I showed there, which was the top 10 things on the slide earlier, I think they all have a place, and it's not going to be one thing. It's going to be a mixture of things that'll show the true value, and they'll connect together. They'll link together. They'll all feed in. So when we're doing the reality capture, that'll feed into some of the other things that we need, probably the digital twins and everything else. I don't think it's one thing. I think it's a combination of things. And probably if you look at that slide with the top 10 things that we've been talking about over the last couple of days, you won't be far off.
Absolutely, but it's like the iPhone, isn't it? We didn't know we needed the iPhone until it was invented. And then so now, is it geospatial? Is it HoloLens? Is it like mapping related? All the things that you talked about, having to go back to the cabin to look at the drawings that were out of date, going back to the site, all of this stuff makes difference. So Tommy, what would you say your number one kind of conversation starter is when you go to people and say, look, it can achieve all these things for you?
I think, well, just sort of tying that in with the point that you made earlier, I don't think you can justify a solid business case on one technology alone. And I don't think that's the right strategy, actually. I think the approach should be, these are our core problem areas, these are services we should be providing to our construction teams in terms of not the connectivity itself, but what's the output, you know, what does that enable, to your point. And that should be a broad range of different things. I mean, we focus for our value case on productivity, because the interface that we have with that project, that's all he cares about. But there are other people in other positions that are looking at other technologies. You know, I think the 360 capture thing is a huge time saver. It's a huge value adder for the construction for projects. But it also burns time like nothing else. So once you can streamline those operations, then so that would be one of them. I think some of the other technologies, like you had XYZ Reality on there, you know, we know them really well. I think things that they're doing to reduce rework by spotting you know, inaccuracies during the construction phase is also something that would, you know, looking a bit further forwards, that's going to be the kind of thing that really unlocks value.
I think the other two big parts of it, if I could generalise it, I think cloud computing is not going away. It's only going to keep growing and growing. That sort of decentralisation of your computing power, your bandwidth for that, and IoT just more generally. A lot of the things that have been touched on in the presentations are relying upon IoT devices. It's not necessarily density of data, but it's volume of data. It's just there's so much of it being transacted every second. Having the right level of infrastructure that enables that transaction, whether it's digital twin type stuff, or you know, you talk about the connected sites and you apply the digital twin principle to construction sites. You know, there's examples of turnstiles there, and heat sensors and temperature sensors and occupancy sensors, all that type of stuff. All that needs to be exchanged at whatever rate that an organisation needs, but that's just all data that needs to be exchanged. So you're going to start creating these bottlenecks of data if you don't have the right level of infrastructure.
Absolutely, data is cannot be underestimated.
Just if I can add to that, I think the other point that I probably should have said earlier, but you know, 5G is an umbrella term for a range of different technologies. You've got really high bandwidth applications, high speed applications. You know, that's not practical for everything. And then you've got IoT enabling technologies, but it still comes under that same standardization umbrella, which is what you need if you're going to get some of those solution providers up off their seats and working on new solutions, because they need to know what to work to. You know, we've seen the sort of LoRaWAN, Sigfox argument going on over the years. You know, really everyone needs to be working towards some sort of common standard, so that it's like, right, we'll stand up a network and this is all the good stuff you can connect to it. So I think that's really important, and trying to understand, unpick which of those bits are really important, and not focusing just on ultra high speed stuff.
Exactly. And so just thinking about in your business, if you're trying to talk about a new investment or a new technology, when we're talking about 5G, think about the challenges. What kind of challenges or what kind of obstructions or questions are you facing in your business about that?
It needs to get to a point in our business where it's just a standard piece of equipment that's added to our prelims. And it's not struck out when it gets to the point of value engineering. It is just, that's the mandated approach, and is what happens on every single job. And that's the point. Once we've got that, it's ubiquitous and it's available everywhere, then we can start relying on the technology. But at the moment, it can't be relied on every single job. And we don't have it there on every single job. So it's limiting what we can actually do and what we can provide and the solutions we can provide to our sites.
And I'd just like to add what Chris was saying there. I think certainly from a Wates perspective, we don't get sight of, and I don't even know that it's been agreed, the type of technologies that are going to be used on those sites that early on. I think it's almost like we're making it up as we go along. And so that, what can we do here to add value, make this run a bit better? And so yeah, the conversation needs to start much earlier. When we're building the tender and what we're going to put in the tender with regards to, as Chris says, connectivity, so we can budget to build the right network to be able to support what we're doing.
And does it, and you know, is there a barrier when you say, oh, we're using this highly innovative technology? You know, that just screams risk from a project perspective. Whereas when you can if you can prove it out, build a business case, demonstrate it, build a use case, you know, really start to say, you know, we're going to get something back from this. I feel like that's That's maybe where you get to the more.
I think the challenge we've got is that we try in construction to have standard processes to minimise risk. Yeah, standard process. So this is what we're going to do, regardless what the project is. These are the steps we're going to take. These are the technologies we're going to use. But what I don't think is those conversations are joined up enough to be able to make sure that we're going to achieve that. You know, with making sure that talking to the IT departments, talking to the BIM teams and the technology providers, and have those conversations. So it's all joined up so that we stand a chance of success rather than everybody rocking up on day one with different expectations.
Yeah, no, I think, I say going back to that sort of cynical me of knowing what it takes to get things over the line, it almost feels like you need some of those technologies to be the Trojan horse to get that connectivity enabled on the site, i.e., you know, we want to use these laser scanning technologies, and you know, if we're creating gigabytes and gigabytes of point cloud data, it's going to take the engineer 4 hours a day or whatever to transfer that data into the cloud. If we, you know, upgrade our infrastructure for 5G, you know, this can save X amount of hours a day. It almost feels like you need the technology to complement the 5G strategy, really, rather than just going in just saying we want 5G on sites. There needs to be a why as well.
And to the end user or to the construction team, it's something tangible, something they'll understand, something they can see benefits from.
Yeah.
But then, if that is it required as an enabler, they'll accept that.
Yeah, and it would take, you know, there are senior leaders out there, but there are senior leaders that would rely more on the heuristics of, you know, like gut feel, like I just know this is the right decision for sites. But that's a hell of a leap for most senior leaders in our industry who, you know, ultimately rely on productivity in pounds and pence and return on investment.
And sometimes those innovations, especially at the leading edge, is not necessarily rewarded with success, even though they made the right decision. But it kind of, yesterday in the innovation track, we were thinking about, you know, BIM, what happened at the beginning of BIM? And the reason BIM was implemented is because the client or the asset owners built it into the contracts.
Yeah.
So can you ever envisage a world where 5G is built into the contracts? And would that take, for example, the British Standards Institute to have 5G standards, because there isn't one at the moment?
I can see it being built into client specifications, and in fact, I know it is already being built into standards for major projects, for some pretty big projects I won't name, and specifically referring to specification which could only practically be met by 5G solutions. So they don't name it, but they say this is the specification. So I know that is happening. I don't think BSI needs to get involved. You know, there's already a standard around 5G. That's what it is. It's a standard, and I think it just needs to be a demonstrable value case, use cases that say this is what we did, this is what we saved, and that should create enough industry momentum, to your point, to drive a bit more adoption.
I think the expectation that I see from probably most of our organisation, other organisations I talk to, is that the public infrastructure, the expectation the public infrastructure will be there. They're told by the communications providers that this is the next best thing. It's going to be wholly available, and then there's a disappointment when it doesn't deliver against that promise. And we have to try and pick up the pieces and just apologise for not being able to deliver what they thought they could get anywhere.
There's a really good Ofcom tool or map where you can go on and see where the coverage is. I'm not sure how accurate it is, but a lot of projects use it. You know, you can see screenshots. It's like, yeah, we've got green, it's all green. And then you turn it aside, it doesn't work, or it just so happens we've built something in the way. Fancy that.
Yeah. I've got a 4G network at my house on that tool. But
Yeah.
I've got only one bar on 3G and it's no data with it anymore.
Yeah, so, you know, if that's the extent that we're surveying sites before we get to them, in terms of connectivity, then, yeah, we're setting ourselves up to fail, I think.
So when do you think those case studies are going to be realised?
Good question. I think there's a couple of high profile projects that are, where the clients are driving them. I think they will be pretty they will be instrumental in moving the industry forwards. But you know, it also is going to take some forward-thinking contractors to grab it by the horns of them now, to once they've identified a real problem, to say, rather than saying, here's a 5G network, what can we do with it? Which I think I'm not speaking out of turn, say that's what's happened previously, especially where it's public money gone into an innovation bid to say we're going to put a 5G network on a site, what can we do with it? As soon as you've identified a real problem that can be solved, you can start to measure against that, and that needs to all happen before the network actually goes onto site. And then, you know, how would we do it without? How are we doing it with? Okay, is it? And the case study I mentioned earlier, where it's like 5 times return on investment, that we did exactly that. And as soon as we can start sharing information about that project, what we did, how we did it, hopefully get a few more under our belt, and you know that's definitely a step forward. But we also need to consider the branding of it, because you know if we say oh yeah, you can have a 5G network, even IT professionals will turn around and say yeah, but 5G is crap, and you know I can't get 5G on my phone.
So there's a lot of work to do, I think, in
There's a lot of work
publicity
to do.
terms. But even if you do that work, what I found in Glass Ceiling Group, what we find is that performance doesn't drive behaviours. If the fact that you'll perform in a certain way doesn't necessarily make people change. Change is a very difficult thing for people to do. And I don't think there's a silver bullet, but is there any insights you can offer, especially Steve, actually, in your years as IT person? What's a good incentive for people to change what they're doing now?
I think they have to see it to believe it. I think that's the beauty of our group. We've got a great opportunity here to be able to showcase the reality, because nobody else is going to do it. Yeah, and I think this forum is a really good forum. We need to get the right people involved and be able to kind of showcase the art of what's possible, so that we're not a solution looking for a problem. We're actually the enabler to the future.
Yeah, and I think that we call COMIT to 5G, but we've spoken about it as being connected site. Really, it should be called connected site.
Yeah.
5G is the current technology that we're focused on, but there will be a 6G, and it's already been developed. There are actually incremental improvements within the 5G standard. You know, we're on release 17 at the moment. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I think release 17 at the moment. You know, there are further releases within 5G until we get to 6G, and that's unlocking other technologies. So I think it's about, a bit of branding needed.
Change is something that we massively underestimate in the industry when we try to put in new initiatives, and it takes a really big piece of work to be able to actually to achieve that change in people, process and technologies. And often it's the people and the process that we so often underestimate to be able to actually achieve where we need to get to. And then we need to focus on that, and focus on that maturity path of actually getting them over those different hurdles to be able to get the people and win them over. Because the technology is just an enabler for people and process.
It's one part of it, isn't it? Yeah.
Great. If there's no more comments on that question, we do actually have a question from the audience. So thank you very much, Chris. Chris, where are you?
Sorry.
Chris?
You've
Hello.
already sort of touched on the first one, to be honest, anyway. And I sort of raised that question, Chris, when you had up your slide, you're talking about establishing sort of day one. The panel's already sort of discussed that tender process and where does connectivity come into it. Then, you know, you mentioned it's almost a given that people just presume that you're going to have the good connection and whatever that may look like, I suppose, is to be determined. So what I'm sort of getting at there is when you come to a project of the size where a private 5G network would potentially be deployed, you know, how early on is that? And we know licensing, obviously there's an Ofcom process to go through to sort of establish that. How early on is that, and does that actually make it unachievable to establish day one because we're not visiting it early enough, or is it we've got enough scope, and what can we do to sort of maybe shorten that time frame?
It is a very difficult one, because we as a contractor won't want to invest anything until we actually sign on the dotted line. But we may have already even started enabling works before we've even actually signed, which puts us in a very difficult difficult position there. And when we're starting enabling works, our health, but people need access to health and safety information. They need access to everything, and if we haven't got the connection there on site, even before we've got a site office, we can't put systems in there to help to support them. They have to be offline systems, etc., etc. So, yeah, it is a difficult one. It needs to be thought about and more and worked through in more detail. But we want it there from the point of enabling works, even before we've actually signed that full main contract. And to be able to do that, has to be thought about right at the very start, at the tender, before we've gone into a pre-construction services agreement. We've made the money, we've made the funding, we've got the allocation of costs there, and that's that point there.
Yeah,
I think
sorry, go on.
I was just going to say the Ofcom licensing can be as little as 3 to 6 days.
Yeah.
So actually,
You're a provider, aren't you, Clarice? The provider of 5G, aren't you? Yes.
So actually, that isn't a big problem. Sometimes the problem is whether you may choose to transition from a public 5G solution when you're doing your enabling works. I know the objective is to get to day one, but you might be like, first 5 days we've got something that we pop up, or you have a Starlink with a Wi-Fi hotspot to start with, and then you say, okay, right, site wide is going to go on to day 6 or day 7. If you haven't got a week's notice, but if you've got a week's notice, which you will have, you can sort it out before. It's not a problem. It's the main problem is understanding the process and how you navigate it.
Yes, yeah. There's always there should be 4 weeks in a pre-commencement process at a very minimum before every single project starts. Is what we get paid for in most contracts.
Yeah.
So
you're comfortable that with sort of 4 weeks notice that you can get that delivered at that point to.
Oh, not confident. No.
And just trying to think, I guess it's not necessarily the bigger picture, but just what problems that obviously you incur from that, not having that day one connectivity, and does that set the project back? That's the sort of.
There are other solutions anyway. There's like optical bonded,
100%,
which you know about because you do it.
But just thinking about if we're looking at the deployment of a 5G network from day one, how plausible is that in terms of your timescales?
It's So for our timescales, we've got that 4 weeks enabling works. We'd like, so 4 weeks of pre-commencement. Yeah, we'd like to be able to have that access there, the data there on site at that point. If there's some pop-up site type solution, yes, that's what we need. We have sites where there's just simply no connections at all, and we still need to run all our standard processes, all our health and safety forms, all our quality control forms, quality control risk management system. That still needs to be done on our site. So we need to look at options if there is no connection there. And an option, unfortunately, we do, I suppose, run often at risk because we don't have a connection there.
Yeah. The cost of having a license in place is absolutely minuscule compared to other costs. So even if you took the license at risk and you just said, I'm going to set it 3 months before we even go live, or I'm going to give myself 3 months to get a response and a confirmed license. Some areas it's more complicated than others. Again, the example 3 to 6 days, but that's rural. You could say I'll give myself 3 months notice. The time you'd save of setting it up, you'd save that back in the license fee. So I don't think the license fee is an issue at all. Not now. No, things have moved on since last August.
And the reality is, if we want to get a line into site, there's a 120-day wait. We can't place that order until the point of actually we've got the main contract. So it's the provider won't actually allow us to do that.
They were here yesterday.
I assume they're not here today.
So hello. Okay, bye.
Sorry.
All right. Who wants to answer this question as if I'm a child? So what is 5G, Tommy?
It's a development of the cellular standard, which describes how mobile devices will connect to a network.
Yes, and that is got nothing to do with what we talk about, does it? Really? Like if we talk about 5G as a set of standards and 5G that we're trying to talk about, what is the line that describes what it is in a way that helps people to understand? I know it's a set of standards, it's hard. That's something I don't know. That's why I'm asking you.
I'll have a go.
Yeah, go on.
It's the next iteration after 4G for mobile connectivity.
Okay, that's a good one. Yes, well done. Chris, do you want to have a go?
I probably would have said exactly the same description from my point
Oh,
of view.
how convenient.
Well,
Well done.
that does describe it well from my point of view and my understanding.
Yes.
But there is opportunities. There is opportunities now with public and private networks, which this is starting to this initiative is starting to look at.
Yes. Ben.
Nothing more to add than.
That's
It's commonly miscommunicated what it is, how it works, but ultimately, you know, standardisation is the key to enabling solution providers to be able to design something that will work commonly.
Yes.
And that's what it's all about. It's just like Wi-Fi is a standard, just like Bluetooth is a standard.
Yes, absolutely. That's correct. Thank you. And it's 20 past now, so.
Have we answered all the
20 past.
questions?
Yes, that's all.
I'll catch up with you, Tommy, on the other stuff. A question for Tommy.
Oh, hello.
I've got it's a bit of a leading point question. There's a provider, Microsoft provider of ERP solutions.
Great. What's your company name?
SOS.
What's your name?
So Mark.
Hello.
So we're a provider of a Microsoft ERP solution, D365. You speaking there about the need for connectivity, obviously, and the importance and where that's seen at the high level from a contractor point of view. You know, the referral of the coffee machines perhaps being more important than the connectivity. It seems to be a bit of a battle that you're all having there. And whilst there are sexy solutions, you know, the off-site ops solutions, the reality capture, 360, those kind of on-site tools, is there a benefit for you in building your business cases into, you know, looking at the benefits of real-time data from an ERP solution and data from site, you know, to put your business case, you know, we provided the project accounting tools where the QSs are providing costs or updating costs on a daily basis rather than once a month on their CDR spreadsheet. That could be a big benefit to you guys in kind of getting that benefit across to the board that want to see the real-time visibility of a project rather than the site tool that in all honesty they're not going to use. So.
definitely we're on the Dynamics 365 as well. We wanted to get to a point where valuation process that's happening on site is automatically tied back to the accounting system that we're using, or accounting ERP system that we're using. So payments can be automatically made when you complete that work. You can automate the payment, and then you can release the areas for the next trades to carry on. So yeah, there is a link into that area, into your ERP.
Because those guys at the board level, they want to see the visibility of the project, what's happening in real-time data, and the financial aspect of the project, and that would allow them to do that, and that would appeal to them great. Yeah. So
I agree though on the sexiness thing. That's like everyone that I speak to jumps straight to spot the dog with a LiDAR scanner on it or augmented reality goggles, and like that maybe feels a bit of a stretch, a bit of a leap from where we currently are, but actually just being able to make a Teams call and not walk in 15 or hopefully not 45 minutes, or just being able to, download the latest drawing on an iPad. You know, it's the simple stuff that actually right now could save a lot of cash. And,
Yes, sexiness and Microsoft Dynamics don't often, I've heard the same sentence. Yes, thank you very much, Mark. I used to sell it, that's why I can say it. So thank you very much. Any comments from the panel? Closing comments? Any other questions? You've not asked any questions.
No, because they answer all the everything.
Well done, well done. Annabelle, any questions?
No.
Yes.
When are we getting it?
it's here right now.
Good question. A very good question.
Wates colleagues.
Yes, no, indeed.
Well, thank you very much. And don't forget to join Commit to 5G.
Thank you.
Thank you.